It started as a joke but quickly turned into a worldwide phenomenon that delivered some of the smallest, most affordable toys ever created. Pocket-sized adventures for pocket change. An empire built by millions of unusual small creatures lurking everywhere. Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of muscle. We have previously covered M.U.S.C.L.E. in February of 2018. It was a very brief look into the pop culture phenomenon in the US that glossed over the Japanese roots of the brand. We're revisiting it here to tell a more comprehensive story that only recycles like 6, maybe 8% of that script. M.U.S.C.L.E. is a toy line using designs licensed from Bandai, released by Mattel from 1985 through 1987. 236 plastic pocket-sized non-posable figures modeled after everything from professional wrestling legend Terry Funk to a Rubik's Cube and a toilet. To get to Mattel's first wave of muscle figures in the US in 1985, we gotta go back to Japan in 1965. That's the first year vending machines were imported to Japan from the US containing capsule toys. Capsule toys are small collectibles or trinkets that can fit inside a 2-part plastic container, popular among children because they could be purchased with pocket change. The most popular toys were based on licensed characters from cartoons and comic books. Through the 1970s, those vending machines could be found everywhere from convenience stores to train stations, earning the nickname Gasha or Gotcha, an onomatopoeia derived from the sound of the cranking mechanism that collects the payment and dispenses the capsule. Thank you to 80stees.com for sponsoring this video. Click the link in the description below and use code TOYGALAXY to get 30% off your order today. What's the first thing that pops into your head when I say the 1980s or the 1990s? Don't think about it, just say it. 1, 2, 3. Rubik's Cube! Yes, they have that, or they had that, or they will have that. 80stees.com is constantly refreshing their inventory with officially licensed t-shirts featuring characters, quotes, and logos from cartoons, comics, TV shows, movies, wrestling, and music from the 1970s through the 2000s. So while I can't guarantee that everything you can think of will be in stock, I can guarantee that you'll always be surprised by the range of their selection. 80stees.com has something for everyone. Your favorite heroes like Batman, Spider-Man, Mega Man, Deadpool, and Wolverine, Voltron, both Lion and Vehicle, Star Wars, Stargate, old and older Battlestar Galactica, Motley Crue, Biz Markie, Pink Floyd, and Jimi Hendrix. Find the shirt that's right for you, the one that speaks to your interests, and lets the world know that there's no bigger fan of scratch and sniff stickers, Spam, or Kellogg's Fruit Loops than you. And you can prove it because you're wearing the shirt. Click the link below and use code TOYGALAXY for 30% off your order today. Again, that's code TOYGALAXY for 30% off your order. And thanks again to 80stees.com. In 1977, Bandai entered the market with their now proprietary brand of capsule toy vending machines called Gashapon, a portmanteau of two onomatopoeia, the aforementioned gasha and pon, the sound the capsule makes when it hits the tray after being dispensed. One of the most popular capsule toys were rubbery eraser-type figures called keshi. Not really meant to be used as erasers, their Japanese name was keshigomu, a literal translation of eraser rubber. In 1979, a manga series called Kinnikuman began in the comics magazine Weekly Shonen Jump, created by two artists, Yoshinori Nakai and Takashi Shimada, working under a team pen name Yude Tamago, or Boiled Egg. Kinnikuman translates to Muscle Man and was the name of both the series and the main character. Charming but stupid, Kinnikuman is the lost prince / third-rate superhero of the planet Kinniku, who must prove his worthiness by winning a series of wrestling tournaments against other warriors vying for the seat of power. Nakai and Shimada originally conceived of the idea as a parody of Ultraman, but Kinnikuman quickly developed a unique tone, style, and roster of characters. The comic series was so popular that 4 years later, in 1983, it was adapted by Toei as an animated series accompanied by licensed toys from various manufacturers and its own line of Keshi figures produced by Bandai called Kinkeshi. Roughly 2 inches tall, molded in pink or flesh color, Kinkeshi featured the spectrum of superheroes, wrestlers, managers, and broadcasters from the Kinnikuman world. Hundreds of figures including multiple versions of key characters and, in some cases, characters in action positions. I'm grappling. They were a retail phenomenon, with kids cranking hundreds of thousands of dollars through Gashapon machines, so much so that it caught the attention of Mattel in the United States, who were looking for a quick and easy way to jump off the top ropes into the professional wrestling fervor gripping pop culture. The World Wrestling Federation, established in 1980, turned the professional wrestling world on its head, knocking out the decades-old business model of independent wrestling organizations operating around the country, assimilating or destroying them. The WWF turned pro wrestling into an everyday pop culture product with regular televised events, a Saturday morning cartoon series, and a variety of licensed merchandise, including toys. It was much easier, faster, and cheaper for Mattel to acquire the rights to Bandai's existing Kinnikuman figures than it was to create something from scratch. Mattel imported the figures but left behind everything else, including the vast mythology built through comics and cartoons in general, because it would have taken more time and money to localize for the Western audience, but also because they were just too violent to market to American kids. Instead, Mattel left the mythology up to the customer and focused on the collectability and weirdness of the figures. Their marketing tapped into the gross-out culture that was booming with brands like Topps Garbage Pail Kids and Amtoy's Mad Balls. They rebranded the toys as MUSCLE, an acronym that stands for Millions of Unusual Small Creatures Lurking Everywhere, with television commercials beginning in 1986 referring to them as things that were invading with the sole purpose of driving America nuts. Furthermore, they were ugly, weird, tiny, terrible, and breaking the most sacred rule of the boys' toys aisle, they were pink. Hundreds of different I don't know whats, and suggesting that kids, gotta catch them all. Instead of stocking vending machines all over the country and charging 25 cents per figure, Mattel released them in random batches of 4, blister carded for $1, or for around $3 you could get 10 figures in a transparent plastic garbage can, a very transparent allusion to the previously mentioned pail-dwelling kids of garbage. The randomness of the assortments meant that the more you collected, the more likely you were to have duplicates, which helped build a community around collecting and trading the figures on schoolyards and with neighborhood kids. Collecting all 236 figures was going to either be very expensive or very collaborative.
Invasion of the muscle things. They've come to drive America nuts. They're ugly, they're weird, they're tiny, they're terrible. And they're pink! There are hundreds of them. It's an epidemic. I'm going crazy!
We're not catch them!
Muscle things. Hundreds of different I don't know whats. They run in packs of 4, 10, or 28. Sold separately, new from Mattel. How many can you capture?
There were box sets of 28 figures for around $7 that were not randomly packed, but were named based on the themes of figures that was a mild indication of some kind of world building. Thug Busters, Cosmic Crunchers, Mighty Maulers, and Cosmic Showdown. On the back of the boxes was a 6-panel comic strip that told the very limited, very superficial amount of story that existed. No one knows where they came from. They invaded and were suddenly having slugfests in the streets. They were out of control.
I'm out of control!
Eventually they formed teams with the good guys, the Thug Busters, led by Muscle Man, and the bad guys, the Cosmic Crunchers, led by Terry Bull, and that's it. Kids could also get the Hard Knockin' Rockin' Ring, which operated like the classic Rock'em Sock'em robots, except that you could utilize nearly any figure in the line interchangeably. Players could then use joysticks to mash the figures together to make them slam and punch. A mail-away poster was the only comprehensive catalog of all 233 figures in the line. That said, the Hard Knockin' Rockin' Ring was not in compliance with that poster because the 2 exclusive figures included with the ring were unique, modified sculpts of Muscle Man and Terry Bull, variations that pushed the total figure count from 233 as indicated on the poster to 235. The 236th figure, also not pictured on the poster, was a character called Satan Cross, who was originally a 2-piece figure in Bandai's Kinkeshi line. Mattel didn't produce the second half of the figure that would have plugged into the hole in its back. It was likely discontinued after the first batch of figures were produced and shipped out to retailers, but before the poster was created. For additional play and transport value, kids could pick up the Battlin' Belt, which looked like a championship wrestling belt with a little wrestling ring covered by a plastic dome in the middle, and additional plastic containers around the sides, allowing you to carry up to 10 muscle figures and look like a total badass. Like Bandai's Kinkeshi before them, muscle figures were originally produced in the pink or flesh color as it came to be known. Subsequent batches over the years were released in a variety of colors, including orange, green, red, pink, blue, and purple, an attempt to inject new life into a line with a limited number of collectible figures. A grape color Muscle Man and a green Terry Bull were included with 8 other figures in the Muscle Mega Match board game. You could also grab a muscle figure in specially marked packages of Nestle Quick. 1986 was also the year another popular Japanese toy was released in the US, the Nintendo Entertainment System. Muscle made an appearance in Tag Team Match Muscle, designed by Bandai for Kinnikuman in Japan, but imported for Muscle in the US just the same. M.U.S.C.L.E was an overnight sensation for Mattel, one of the 10 best-selling toy lines of 1986 according to Playthings magazine, which I only read for the articles. As with any product that becomes that popular that fast, imitators and counterfeiters ran in to grapple dollars away from unwitting consumers, and in many cases selling them through vending machines as they had done in Japan. How do you tell a real M.U.S.C.L E figure from a fake? Any kid or collector who has handled enough figures can likely tell the difference. Fakes might be a firmer plastic or even softer. The figures themselves could be warped or have soft details. And every genuine M.U.S.C.L E figure sold by Mattel retained the Bandai markings on the back, identifying them as such. YSNT representing the copyright holders, Yude Tamago, the original creators, Shueisha, the publishers of the comics, NTV, the network that cartoon was broadcast on, and Toei, producers of that cartoon. M.U.S.C.L E burned fast and bright, but by 1987 the phenomenon came to an end, killed by the fickle tastes of 8-year-olds, perhaps. But that wasn't the only culprit. M.U.S.C.L E was a licensed property, which meant that Bandai was always going to get a cut of Mattel's profits. And, not for nothing, but the Nintendo Entertainment System, while technically not a toy, quickly turned the toy world on its head, knocking out traditional toy lines and forcing companies to compete for fewer dollars as kids left physical objects behind for the playthings of the digital realm. The original Toei Kinnikuman animated series also ended in Japan in 1986 after 137 episodes. The original run of the manga ended the following year in 1987. But that wasn't the end for Kinnikuman. A decade later in 1998, a new manga, Kinnikuman the Second Generation, began in Weekly Playboy magazine, which I only read for the articles. In 2002, 4Kids Entertainment, still on a Pokemon high, adapted the 51 Kinnikuman Second Generation episodes as a Saturday morning cartoon series called Ultimate M.U.S.C.L E. Other than some name changes and minor editing to meet US standards and practices, it is mostly unchanged. Ironically, the series didn't do well in Japan and was canceled before finishing all of its storylines, but in the US, it was so popular that an additional 13 episodes were created and aired in the US before airing back in Japan. After that, another 13 episodes were created and broadcast in Japan before the series finally ended in both countries in 2004. Viz Media published an English version of the Japanese comics as Ultimate M.U.S.C.L E. Bandai released a line of 8 6-inch Super Wrestlers figures with 25 points of articulation and a card from the Ultimate M.U.S.C.L E card game, as was the style at the time. They also tapped into 80s nostalgia with a line of micro figures that were roughly the same size as the original Mattel M.U.S.C.L E figures, but in more colors and in some cases, fully painted. There were 418 figures produced in the original Kinnikuman Kinkeshi line of figures. Only 236 made their way into Mattel's M.U.S.C.L E line. It's possible that the others could have followed if the line lasted even one more year. But the good news is that those other Kinkeshi figures still exist, and if you want to build on your M.U.S.C.L E collection as if they were released, you still can. All it costs is time and money. Or you can take a shortcut and just buy a complete set all at once. In 2008, for the 29th anniversary of the original Kinnikuman manga series, Toei released a special edition DVD collection of the original Kinnikuman animated series and, as a special limited edition bonus, a reproduction set of all 418 original Bandai Kinkeshi figures. No, they aren't exact reproductions. They are smaller, made from a slightly different kind of plastic, and entirely new sculpts. They're as close to the originals as they could make them because the original molds had deteriorated over the decades. Still, for most collectors, it's the fastest, most affordable way to build a complete collection, including figures that they might never have been able to get their hands on. If you prefer highly articulated figures, Bandai has been releasing Kinnikuman characters in their SH Figuarts line for nearly a decade. As of this video, Kinnikuman himself is up for pre-order at various online retailers. Highly unlikely they'll get to all 418 designs in the original Kinkeshi series or even the 236 in M.U.S.C.L E. Meanwhile, in the US, M.U.S.C.L E returned as a figure format, no longer bound exclusively to interpretations of characters from Kinnikuman, thanks to Mattel and Super 7. In 2015, they produced Motussel figures, that is, a dream mashup of Masters of the Universe and M.U.S.C.L E, two brands owned by Mattel. From there, Super 7 and Mattel themselves have used the official branding and figure format for Aliens, Street Fighter II, Mega Man, Robotech, Shogun Warriors, Iron Maiden, WWE, Street Sharks, and just this year, still available on Mattel Creations as of this video, Mighty Max. It's been nearly 40 years since they first invaded America. Weird, tiny, terrible creatures, hundreds of I don't know what's, here to drive you nuts, with a little bit of wrestling and a whole lot of muscle. I should have put the suit on. Thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Thank you very much to those of you who already are. If you're in the position to help the channel grow, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/toygalaxy. Several different tiers to address your specific Secret Galaxy content needs. Check out the Secret Galaxy merch shop at secretgalaxy.shop. All merchandise is physically in stock and ready to ship. Links to all of this in the description below, and let us know in the comments down below if you collected muscle figures back in the day and how many you had. I spent a lot of time going through the blister cards on the pegs trying to find that sweet spot of the maximum number of figures that I liked versus figures that I didn't have. Sometimes you had to get 1 or 2 losers to get the cool figures that you wanted. Easy enough to make that compromise as long as they were losers that you didn't already own. I remember some very heated trades going down in the cafeteria for high demand figures. 3 for 1, 4 for 1, 5 for 1, and then the feeling that the universe didn't make any sense when some kid would come in the next day with that same single figure that he just happened to find in a blister pack at Kmart. Now he's got a clean brand new figure and I'm out 5 losers. Make it make sense.
Cut.